Hello, welcome to the Citrus Garden. If you're new here, my name is Christina. If you're not new here, hi, welcome back. It's great to see you. This is a general collective reading. There are no signs attached to it. So only take it if it resonates with you within the first couple of minutes. Otherwise, just go find a different video. Don't watch or don't take on energy that doesn't belong to you or doesn't resonate with you. So let's get started. I'm getting so many downloads before this reading. First of all, the song When the Night Feels My Soul by Bedouin Soundclash could have to do with the Aquarius Rising video that I just posted, the last one that I posted, but it doesn't have to be. But it's kind of just talking about like there's some sort of significant transformation. I'm just gonna leave that song like that. I don't want to like elaborate too much on that. But anyways, so it's so interesting. Okay, so bottom of the deck energy. We have here the yellowing card, and then vinegar underneath that. So both of these cards together, that's so interesting. Okay, so the yellowing card talks about like some sort of transition that is perhaps coming through as like a sign of growth, is how that's feeling to me. A sign of growth or transition or maturing in some way, especially with the vinegar card. I love this vinegar card. But it talks about sort of like a splash of like freshness. Or so it's kind of bringing in this energy of spring, which is a positive energy. But it kind of feels like in that process, there may be sort of like difficult energies that are being revealed, right? Like kind of like, I used to live downtown. And so whenever the snow started melting, when the weather was getting warmer, like you would see like all of these like sort of like cigarette butts that got like that were just like thrown in the snow. So a sign of the change, like a sign of something changing, but in the process there may be sort of like things that need to be cleaned up is kind of how it's coming through. Especially with the yellowing card, it's kind of like this card can talk about sort of like a sign of change, or that a change is needed, is kind of how that's coming through. So I'm just going to leave that generally like that. You have here as well the eagle, which is more of this sort of yellowing energy. This card talks about transforming some sort of karma, is how that is coming through. And there's some sort of like significant transformation. This is also a card that shows mastery over air and fire. So some sort of clarity I always see with this eagle card as well. Again, eagle to me is also an Aquarius energy, so that reading might be significant to you in some way. But also fire, which is today coming through with a transformation, because there is a lot of transformational energies coming through here. So, but there's also this sort of like Nine of Swords, which talks about anxiety. So I feel like I'm just kind of getting this energy of like somebody who is perhaps going through like an energy of like, what if, whatever, what if, just asking sort of like, what if, and then filling that in with sort of like, perhaps negative or anxiety-based or fear-based kind of like things, which is kind of like, I feel like this is a necessary process, because how I'm seeing this is kind of like, especially with like the energy of spring, like going through your closet and sort of looking at all of the things that you've accumulated. So I'm seeing that as sort of like the Nine of Swords, but in terms of like your mental processes, like how you're thinking about something, like all the thoughts that you have perhaps stored in your mental closet, and sorting through each one of those things. what if this? Is this like still an item or a thought or belief that I still need to have in my closet mentally? So it's kind of coming through like that. Like it's feeling like a mental decluttering process, but in the process of that, like you have to actually go and sort through all of the things that are in your closet, if that makes sense. And then throw out or discard the things that you don't need. So I feel like that's part of the process that's happening. It's so interesting. Okay. So the first card that came out was the Great Serpent, which talks about significant transformation. Because it's coming through with the yellowing, and the sort of vinegar card has this like yellow green kind of tint. It's emphasizing this section of the Great Serpent, and it was coming through. If you are familiar with that children's book, it's called The Very Hungry Caterpillar, about the very hungry caterpillar, of like a caterpillar that just like eats and eats and eats in preparation for some sort of significant transformation. So I'm seeing that here. It's like this energy here is sort of like it's the beginning of the end, which is not meant to sort of like cause any sort of fear. It's just like the end is representing some sort of significant transformation or change or transition into something new. That's basically what it's talking about. But there may be fear about that, because it's kind of like perhaps there's like an energy of making space, right? Like decluttering some sort of like a closet, or like storage, or like all the things that are sort of like that are just taking up space perhaps, but that actually don't serve a particular function anymore, is how that's coming through. And with the card that is coming out here with the animals, you have the Panther card. I was seeing this card in my mind's eye this morning before I wasn't sure if I was gonna do a reading today, if I would have time, but I was seeing this card. But the way that the card was looking in my mind's eye, like the eyes were so green, like the greenest eyes that I've ever seen. And when this card came out, though, it's kind of like it was coming through, like today it's looking more yellow than it is green. Like the way that I imagined this card was more green than it actually is. So there's just something here about like, this card talks about sort of like a purification or purging process, which has the purpose of getting rid of things that you don't need. Like getting rid of excess, or getting rid of like, again, just like the energy of like doing spring cleaning or decluttering a closet or that kind of thing. But in terms of sort of like perhaps like mental space, like what it is that you're thinking about. The Great Serpent here also talks about sort of like a transformation in terms of like something turning into an opposite. But the energy that I was getting with this was kind of like, when like a lobster or like any sort of animal that has like a hard skin or a hard like covering, right? Like a carapace was what I was seeing, right? Like the exoskeleton, that kind of thing. Those animals or insects need to go through like a significant transformation where they shed that exterior, and then for a period of time, like that's how I'm seeing this, right? Like they shed a particular exterior shell, and for a period of time there's a period of vulnerability, where that, because the skin the exoskeleton needs time to harden, So it's like there's sort of like a period of vulnerability, but the Great Serpent here talks about like protecting, an energy of protection while this transformation happens. So it's like there's some sort of like perhaps an expansion process, but that actually involves removing something, or like getting rid of something that is perhaps just taking space. I feel like though, so the Panther card also talks about like a necessary change. I feel like that's what this card is talking about. So it's kind of like it's moving into the solar plexus now, because I feel like the energy of like green is the heart chakra, right? So something, and it's coming out here with the Lovers underneath that. So this card talks, the Lovers just in general talks about like making a choice. So I feel like there may be something like making a choice to commit to something. But I feel like in that choice, like you're choosing some, or there's like just generally however you want to however you want to like phrase this or take this on, is like there's someone who's making a choice to commit to something, but in the process, like after you make that choice, a significant transformation occurs, because I feel like at this stage there may be something that is like sort of taking up space, and it's like whatever it is that needs, like whatever this choice is that is needed is taking up too much space that this Lover's energy would require, or like time or investment, or like whatever. It's like having to make space for whatever this new thing is. But what you have here next is the Otter card, which I love so much, because this is very much an energy of the Lovers, whatever that is. I sometimes describe this card as being sort of like something, or perhaps someone that you desire, or that someone that you love, or something that you love, something that makes your soul sing. And it's at a distance though, like you're kind of seeing it through a telescope. That's how I see this card. But this, so it could be something like this, where it's like you're making space for whatever this otter energy is to like clear out something that's no longer serving, or is just taking up more space than perhaps it needs, because this one doesn't have space to come in, is how that's feeling like. And underneath the otter, you have here the Seven of Pentacles. This card to me looks like Gordon Ramsay preparing some sort of meal. I always see that in this card. So it does talk about like mastery, but also like preparing something, right? Like doing all the prep work in preparation of like some sort of final product, whatever that is. Okay, next set of cards out. You have here the Pluto. So this card talks about significant change and transformation. It's coming through actually. So first of all, a lot of Scorpio energy, because you have here the whale underneath that, which to me is always it's a Scorpio energy that's in balance. In balance. Should clarify my words here. That is balanced. A balanced Scorpio energy, which talks about sort of like it is a death and rebirth cycle. It feels like, right? Like a significant transformation into something new. With the whale card, though, it talks also about like emotional depth, or something to do with like very deep emotions and deep wisdom. But this was also coming through with an energy of like extremes today. Like, there may be an energy here of like pushing something to the extreme. Especially here with the Five of Pentacles coming out underneath this. Because this is sort of like an extreme, or I don't want to use the word extreme. That feels too intense. I feel like it's more so like pushing something to the limits, but it's in service of this transformation, because it's kind of like it's a significant perhaps challenge that I feel like that is trying to encourage someone to connect with their true power, is how that's coming through. So it's like a significant challenge, or some sort of energy of like a limit, like reaching your limit of something that actually forces somebody to find their true power. Because I often see this whale as like coming up from the depths. So there's an energy of like the depths, whatever that is for you. And it's like forcing somebody to either make a change or find some sort of truth or transformation, or their power, connecting with their power. And this is where the energy sort of shifts as well, because this is a water energy. So is the otter. So both of these are watery energies. But then you have here next the tiger, which is also fires with the panther here. But this one, so the panther can sometimes come through with an energy of fear or anxiety, or like an unwanted change, perhaps, like something that an unwanted change maybe, but is one that is necessary. I feel like that's what that's talking about. And then with the tiger here, because this talks about like feminine energies, but it's kind of like that energy of like when the night feels my soul, where it's kind of like perhaps there's like a lot of things happening or changing, and it's kind of like this is sort of like the quiet that comes after a significant challenge. And it's kind of like in that quiet, or in that peace or stillness, there is, I want to say clarity, or like inspiration, or passion, or power. It is reconnecting with sort of like feminine power, whatever that means to you. And it is coming out with the Ace of Wands, which is sort of emphasizing this energy of power today, or inspiration, or passion. The thing about the tiger, though, is that this one can sometimes come through with an energy of like being activated in some way. It's not quite triggering, but it is sort of like it propels an energy of change, or it encourages some sort of like action that is needing to be taken that perhaps hasn't been, or that like requires a significant amount of power or energy. But that is ultimately in service of something that you want to move towards, here with the Ace of Wands. Okay. The last couple of cards here, you have here the Sublimation. So this card talks about a transition from a solid state into the gas state, which I'm seeing here as being sort of like, especially with the whale, being at sort of like the bottom, or density or heaviness or something. into like sublimation, which is the gas, which is feeling much lighter about something. So it does talk about ascension. It talks about like moving forward, but something about here with the sublimation also talks about like service to others as well. That might be part of the next steps might be like how you might be of service to others, like how you can help others, or there's like some sort of like act of service here that is perhaps what the next step is. I also just see like sort of like a sudden shift with this card, especially with the background, like a sudden shift, perhaps like maybe there's like something about like I'm getting kind of this energy of like seeing some sort of sign that signals like some sort of change or something like that. A sign that is perhaps like very difficult to ignore. It could be something that like changes your like a particular way of thinking. It could be something like that, like something that changes your mindset or a worldview that you might have, or because it was coming through as sort of like something that perhaps you thought was impossible, or just the word that I was getting was irrational in some way, like something that doesn't fit into your established way of being. That's how it was coming through today. Like seeing something that's perhaps very mystical as well with the sublimation card, like mystical or quote unquote impossible, or spiritual in some way. Like seeing some sort of sign is actually what I was getting with that card. So the sublimation card is coming out with the owl today. I love these two cards together. So this owl can talk about, like, it is coming through today as being sort of like a very spiritual messenger kind of energy, especially because here with the tiger of like the energy of like the night or darkness, right? Like in sort of like the quiet or the stillness, there's some sort of message or understanding or clarity or wisdom that comes through. Could be some sort of like letter or a bright light. That's so weird. I'm seeing like this light on one of my crystals that I haven't seen before. That's so weird. Okay, anyways, I don't know if you can see it. I have like these little crystals here, and there's like a little like shiny little speck. I've never seen that before. Okay. Anyways, that's so weird. Okay, the Page of Cups coming out underneath this. This card talks about like preparing some sort of like gift for somebody. That's what I see with this Page of Cups, like something that is very heart-centered, like it's very sweet. Preparing some sort of like gift or blessing for somebody else, right? Like that's sort of the energy that's coming through with the owl. So there may be like, maybe you're doing this, like part of the act of service might be like preparing some sort of gift or act of sweetness or act of love for somebody else. And the last couple of cards, so you have here the fox. I love this card so much, and it's coming out right, like the way that it's laid out on the table here is beside the yellowing card. So it is talking about sort of like somebody maturing in some way, or like a very mature person. But this one talks to me actually about like loyalty to the people that you love. However that relates to you, the loyalty to people that you love. And this one talks about sort of like a teacher, but one that's very sort of like playful and like brings a lot of joy and fun. Very clever as well, very wise. Because it's coming out with the owl, it does feel very wise today. It's like there's a combination of that kind of energy, but playful. There's all this energy here of like flipping, because the way that the cards came out, the animals all came out in pairs. So this one's fire, water. This one's water, fire. And this is air and earth, which is so interesting. Because especially with the sublimation, right? That's talking about transition from earth, solid, to air, gas. Which is really interesting. So the fox talks about family and partnership. It talks about like being of service to the ones that you love, and especially in sort of like a playful or charismatic kind of way. It's also coming out here with the Empress and the Strength card to end it. So it is talking about sort of like your feminine energies, regardless of how you present in terms of your gender. It has nothing to do with gender. This is more so just in terms of like energy, and everybody has masculine and feminine energies within themselves. So this is to me focusing on more of like a feminine energy, like your feminine energies, and some sort of strength that comes through with that. Especially with the Strength card, I see this as sort of like mastery over self and over your own like gifts and your own nature. Mastery over your own nature is how that's coming through. This is like a very oh my goodness, I don't even know how to put words to that. There's so much warmth in this reading. Even though that's not sort of like the energy that is... It's so interesting. Before I did this reading, I was going to do a reading. I had all the cards out. I went downstairs, and then I just got the like I just felt like making myself a tea, just to sort of like settle. And then it started to hail outside. Like just like pellets of hail, which is kind of like this energy of sublimation, of like seeing something that sort of like, no, it doesn't have to be changes your mindset, but it's kind of like it forces you to stop and witness what it is that you're seeing. And then as soon as the hail passed, because it only lasted for like less than a minute, I want to say, in the time that it took me to like make my tea, and then the sun came out after that. So that's what I'm seeing this as, is like perhaps some sort of energy that is like forces you to stop and witness whatever it is that's happening. And then after that sort of energy passes, because it could be uncomfortable in some way, or I just want to say that it like forces you to stop and consider something, is how that's coming through. But after that passes, it's like the sun comes out and there's like all of this warmth. And it's almost like you can stop and say like, okay, I overcame some sort of challenge here. Because it does feel like it's kind of like, I'm seeing this as somebody who's overcome a significant challenge and has like grown so much from that. You know, when you start to see somebody's like true self start to shine a little bit more, that's what I see in these cards. Somebody whose like true self is starting to come through. Okay, I'm gonna leave it there. If this resonated with you, please like, subscribe, or leave a comment down below. It helps so much. Thank you for sharing your energy with me, and I hope you have a great day. Bye.